If portraits or want to learn how to do portraits, Anna Rose Bain has got something special for you today. Anna, what are you going to do?
I'm going to do a very quick lock-in of a portrait so that you can get a fast likeness.
A fast likeness. Boy, I'll tell you, that's the thing that I struggle with the most, so I'm excited about that. Let's get this show rolling.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rose. Now, here's your host, Eric Rose.
Welcome to Art School Live. I'm Eric Rhodes. I publish Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines, plus a bunch of newsletters. I think we got like 5 or 6 of them now. And we're kind of like Disney for artists, right? So we just have all these experiences, training, events, trips, like I'm taking a group to New Zealand to paint. That's going to be very cool. Our guest today is Anna Rose Bain, and she is a rock star painter. You are going to learn so much from her today. She's going to teach you about how to block in a portrait and get a likeness. And she just does absolutely incredibly beautiful work, as you can see, and a lot of variety. Very accomplished. We're going to learn a little bit about how she became so accomplished as we go through today. But it looks like she's using her children as models. We'll find out about that today, too. We have a prize for you if you leave a comment, and we pick your name from the comments, no matter where you're watching from and whether it's live or replay. We have an easel brush clip for you, which clips onto your studio or your plein air easel so you can keep your brushes handy and not drop them all the time, which I do. I have a tend to do that. Let's see here. We had a prize from the other day, but I don't see the winner's name, so we'll skip that. We have a free ebook for you, and that's 10 steps to become a high-level figure and portrait artist. What we did is we surveyed people and found out from the people who are at the highest level what they think are the things that are really, really important to get to the highest level. And so we put that together in ebook. Just go to realismlive.com/ebook. And suddenly a slide appeared. The winner of the plein air apron is Frances Breiling in Oregon. So Frances, congratulations. You're going to be styling, baby, styling. Okay, so now we're going to get back to Anna Rose Bain. Anna, welcome back to Art School Live. You're ready to show us how to block in a portrait and get a likeness?
I sure am, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you. Well, let's go ahead and get this ball rolling, get this show going, because we're all anxious to hear what you have to say.
Sounds good. Well, today I'm going to be working from a reference photo. Normally, I work from life or I work from a computer screen, but I just figured this would be a little bit easier for you guys to see. So
all
right.
I'm
going to just put that up here right next to my panel.
When you do a reference photo, do you typically photograph it yourself?
I do. I much prefer to work from my own photo references if possible. Sometimes that's not possible if I'm doing commission portraits, but for my own figurative work, I just find that if I can be involved from start to finish, it just makes for a better product.
Okay.
So
all right.
Well,
let's get started.
Set up next to my panel. Yeah, let's get started. I toned my panel ahead of time. This is just an aluminum panel that I primed with 2 coats of oil primer. And I've toned it with ivory black so that it actually matches the value of my palette. And on my palette today, I have cadmium red light, I have amethyst from Michael Harding, and then these 2 earth tones are from Rembrandt. They're transparent oxide brown and red. And then I have cadmium orange, cadmium yellow pale, titanium white, warm light yellow from Michael Harding, and then I have viridian and ultramarine blue. And now the important thing about this particular palette is that I choose to work with very transparent darks for portraits. The reason being, as soon as I mix them with my lights, they're going to end up mixing really nicely instead of muddying it down. So that's something to keep in mind when you're blocking.
I have a question.
Sure.
All right. So what you said, the second one to the all the way to the left, the one next to the red, you said was what color?
Amethyst.
Amethyst.
That's a really deep, transparent purple. It's such a gorgeous color.
I've not heard of that
I can
one.
even show you. Yeah, if I mix it with white, check that out. That's so pretty.
Well, Michael Harding's going to be selling a lot of amethyst after this, I'm sure. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
That's true. I love his paints, but I'm not really a paint loyalist. I work with lots of different brands because I stick to the colors that I prefer, and they're all different across the board. So let's get started with our quick block in here. I'm going to grab some transparent oxide brown. I have a tiny bit of solvent, Gamsol, on my brush to mix with that. And now, guys, this is going to happen so fast, so you're going to have to pay attention. I'm going to start with the top of the head, just a little mark for that there, and the bottom of the chin. And I put these kind of one behind the other because she's in a profile position. So I want to make sure that I'm already getting kind of that pose and that gesture from the get-go. So the top of the head would be really the highest point on her head, and the bottom of the chin is going to come forward from that. And then from there, I'm just going to put in a center line for the eyes. Now this is different than putting in a line for the eyebrows. Those are typically much higher. So we can put those in and kind of guess where they would be above the eyes themselves. And then we can measure real quick, we can measure thirds going down from the hairline to the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose, and the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin.
Now, you're not doing it in sight size because you're making your portrait larger than what's on the photo. Is that correct?
It's actually not that much larger. It kind of feels larger at this point because the top of the head is so high up versus the actual face. But it might be a little bit larger, but I tend to shrink my heads as I go, so maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle.
All right, I can see a headline, shrunken heads.
Yeah, some people grow their heads when they paint, and mine just tend to shrink. Yeah. So as I'm going, I'm looking at these distances here. They're vertical distances, hairline to eyebrow, eyebrow to approximately the bottom of the nose. And as I do this, I'm bringing the nose below this far eye. So you can already tell that she's in this 3/4 turn, almost a profile. And I'm just putting in some marks with very transparent paint here to indicate my darks and my shadow regions and also the gesture of her face. Now, I know it's not a likeness quite yet, but we'll get there.
All right. Well, if you don't get there, we're going to give you a hard time. So no pressure.
How can you do a likeness in 5 seconds?
No, you can't. I mean, if you can, I'll be super impressed.
I would be impressed too, Eric.
Hello, Netherlands. Welcome. You guys make sure you tell us where you're watching from. It's always fun to see where everybody's coming in from.
Oh, it's so exciting. This show is just bringing artists together from all over.
So I was in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, and I'm walking down the street in San Miguel, the middle of this big city, and this guy walks up to me and he says, "Are you Eric Rhodes?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, I've been watching your show. I taught you. I learned how to paint." And it's like, wow.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's so neat. So you're a celebrity all over the world.
I don't know about that. So hello, Germany. Welcome. Another Netherlands.
Wonderful.
Norway.
Yeah, it's evening there. Everybody's kind of sitting in front of the TV after dinner and watching some art. That's so great.
Yeah, I like it.
Now I'm blocking in super fast, as you can see, and I'm going to start moving right away to some of my lights. I have my shadow zones kind of blocked in. The drawing is not 100% yet, but here's where you can actually get really fast and fill in the blanks. I'm going to grab some of this warm light yellow, which is another Michael Harding color, and I love it because It's a really light value, but it already leans towards kind of that skin tone color.
Which color is
You
it?
don't,
What's it called?
it's called warm light
Warm
yellow.
light yellow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so it's a great color for highlights in skin. It's a great base color. When I'm mixing my lights, I really try to have a big pile of paint here
Uh-huh.
because while I go in thinly with my shadow areas, I want to go in much thicker with my lights.
All right.
And if I start with a great big pile of this warm light yellow, I can mix my color into it.
All right.
So I'm mixing transparent oxide red into that puddle. And I've got some lighter variations of it up here, and then it gradually gets a little bit darker. And I'm just going to test a little section. That looks too dark.
Okay. Hello,
So,
Gretel from Italy. Hello, Grace from France. Welcome.
and I like to start in the forehead because that's kind of a simpler area. You know, I think
So
often
it's
we'll
one
start a
one
portrait
one
and we'll
big
really,
plane.
yeah, it's one, well, it's more than one plane, but it's not quite as complex as a nose or an eye socket. So
Right. Yeah.
it's
Well,
a good place
there's some subtle plane changes there, definitely.
for sure. But I can use this as kind of like if you were putting makeup on, this would kind of be like the foundation.
You should do my
And
portrait
if
for
I,
the magazine.
oh, how fun would that be?
I have portraits done by the greatest artists in the world right next to me here.
Oh,
Staring at
wow.
one by Nelson Shanks, Daniel Green, lots
Oh
of
my
them.
goodness. What an honor.
Well, the best part was that
Wow.
I only sit with them live. So I got to learn all about him and get to know him. Nelson Shanks, I spent 4 days with him on a portrait.
How cool. What an honor. I saw him a couple of times at some art events and then unfortunately he passed away, but you know,
Yeah,
that's so
he
great that you got that experience.
he called me about a week before he passed away. I got very, very lucky. I don't think he knew he was going to pass away
Oh,
that soon.
well, life is too short. You just got to paint.
You're already getting likeness. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, so all I'm doing is filling in these light shapes and I'm kind of painting up to some of those shadow regions that I put in
How did
there.
you
And
get
even though
so
this is,
good? What,
I paint from life all the time.
where did you get your training, or did you?
So I have an art degree from Hillsdale College in Michigan,
Oh, that's a
and
great school.
it's a great school, classical training, and then from there I sort of um, just branched out by taking lots of workshops afterwards.
I didn't know that
And
Hillsdale had an art program. It's a really terrific school.
it is a great school, and they don't talk about the art department enough or raise enough money for it. So if you guys want a good cause to put your money towards, they need a new art building for sure.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
yeah,
I need a place for my museum, so maybe I'll put my museum in. Where's Hillsdale? What city in Michigan?
it's in, well, Hillsdale, Michigan. Yeah.
Oh, duh.
Yes, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know, right? I think the
Uh,
town is only like 10,000 people. It's very
did
small.
you grow up in Michigan?
I grew up in Wisconsin, so I am from the
Wisconsin.
Midwest. Yeah, you hear it as soon as I say it, right? I've started adding some red into these shadows because this is outdoor lighting. You know, she's posing out in a garden. She's got this wonderful warmth bouncing up into her. And
Nice.
so as I go, you know, a lot of people might not even get to this stage yet, but I like to infuse right away from the beginning because to me, there's really no point in uh, skipping that. I feel like color and value are so intertwined that if I can nail the color and the value both at the same time, that's saving myself a
Lots of
lot of
time.
headache. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
there any way you
All
can get
about
the camera a little closer to the portrait?
sure.
All right.
Let's
That's what I like is cooperation.
see. Is that
Outstanding.
a little bit better?
Yes, it is. Thank you so
Maybe
much.
even maybe even closer here.
Yeah.
I have some glare, so I'm looking at this with a lot of glare on it, but it looks great on camera, and that's all that matters, right?
Well, it looks there's glare on your canvas.
On my picture.
Oh yeah. Okay, we had
Yeah,
that too. All right, it's gone now.
there you go. So I started adding some amethyst in here, and I'm just looking to see places where I can put that in there because the color is just so rich and lovely. And as soon as you incorporate some of that color, the skin tones really come to life. And then I'm going to mix up a sub pile here. I like to call my initial pile the mama pile of paint, and then she has all these little babies around her. And they're all just variations of a theme where you've got warmer versions, cooler versions, lighter versions, darker versions. But you'll notice I keep my lights and my darks somewhat separate on the palette just for the sake of clarity and for cleaner color.
Oh, that's a good habit.
Yeah.
Man, you're just cranking that thing.
How much time do I have, Eric?
Oh, you got plenty of time.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah, you can slow down if you need to.
You know, I will slow down at some point, but this stage of the painting is the most fun for me because I feel like I can just be extra responsive to what I'm seeing without being overly tied down yet. I like to call it non-committal, but it still has a direction. And I like to just grab onto the things that really speak to me in the moment. And I'm all over.
We were talking about that yesterday, how our paintings talk to us. People think we're crazy.
No, it's true. Painting is a relationship.
How long you been painting?
Well, let's see. I've been painting since I was about 18, so it's been, oh gosh, almost 20 years.
That's what it takes.
It takes time, it takes love, it takes great love and dedication. You have to love what you're doing, otherwise you can burn out pretty quick on this.
You said something about volume, if I remember correctly. There's a question in the comments that just says volume. Can you articulate what you mean by that?
Paint volume. So when I started out, I had a little bit of solvent on my brush, and I was putting that in really thinly with not a whole lot of paint on my brush. It was thinned down, and what that does is it sets quicker. It'll dry a little bit quicker, and then I can work into it easier, and then I'm not fighting the paint quite as much as I go. But when I'm working in my lights, in all of these big, juicy, thick areas, that's what I mean by paint volume. I'm just including a lot more paint on there.
Thickness.
So I have, yeah, thickness. So what that does is it creates the feeling of transparency, of air in the painting, rather than everything being all the same. And it gives it more of that sculptural look too.
So what's your best advice to somebody who's only been painting for a year or two? Do you have any?
Sure. I would say draw all the time. Even though painting is very appealing in the sense that you get to work with color, painting is really just drawing with color. And so if you don't have the basics down with drawing and understanding proportions, understanding perspective, then you're just going to be frustrated in your painting. So practice drawing, of course, practice color and do your color charts, but you know, learn the drawing first, and then it's going to come a lot easier. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. I think people want to just skip to the fun part, but drawing is fun too. And even though it requires some self-discipline, ultimately it's going to pay off and save you so much time down the road because the reason I can do this so quickly is I understand proportions and I understand where things usually go, even if they're a little bit different on everybody.
I tend to
There's a lot
have
of
a
great books out there.
sketchbook in my back pocket pretty much all the time.
That's wonderful.
And if I'm standing in a line at a grocery store and it's a long line or something, I'll pull out my sketchbook and draw.
Do people ever comment on that when you do it?
On occasion, you know, they think you're being weird because you're looking at them all the time.
Yeah.
I have a whole sketchbook filled with the back of people's heads from airplanes.
Oh, how funny. So you definitely know the planes of the head by now, right? Yeah, it's it's definitely a special kind of calling doing what we do. And right now, this model, she has such pronounced cheekbones. It's going to be very easy for me to almost go overboard on that. So I'm trying to check myself as I go and just make sure that that I'm not overemphasizing that too much quite yet. And the direction of my brush stroke is going to make or break that. She's quite young, she's in her 20s, but if I were to make brush strokes going this way, all the way across the bottom of her face, and then, emphasize like this line here by her nose, that's going to age her. So I'm trying to be careful and sensitive to all of that by just varying my brush strokes and making sure they're, not all going in the same direction.
Interesting.
And I think part of it is intuitive too. You think about just the direction that a form is going. Her cheek feels like it's going this way, and her forehead feels like it's going this way. And so you can kind of go with that a little bit and follow those gestural feelings with your brush strokes. Some things work better than others, so that's.
If anybody has questions, just pop them into the comments section. I should also mention that we have prizes. Today's prize is, I can't even remember what I said. Today's prize is the easel brush clip. So if you want to win the easel brush clip, leave a comment, tell us where you're from, and you have a chance. Our guest today is Anna Rose Bain, who is an absolutely incredible painter, and she's teaching us how to do a likeness right now. And you're doing a great job.
Oh, thanks, Eric. I've done so many of these, and honestly, it's easier to block in a portrait from a photo when the photo's sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
But my favorite way to work is to work from a live model.
Me too.
I love that interaction. I love that human element to it.
I haven't done it for 2 years because I have a figure group at my house every week for 10 years. But
Wow.
COVID stopped it, and I haven't resumed it because I haven't had time.
Well, you've got a lot of things, a lot of a lot of things going on, which is great.
Beats sitting and watching television.
Sure does. And I found that is a silver lining to everything with COVID, just in the sense that things like this, where we're on camera, where we can bring art to everyone all over the world. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing that we've been able to tap into. And
Absolutely.
I'm really, really glad that we're kind of coming to a place where things are happening more in person now again. But I don't think this is going away. I think this is going to be the new normal, and I think that's a good thing.
Could be. Bonjour from Montreal. Hello from India. Thank you guys for tuning in.
You'll notice I'm chipping away at some of these shadow shapes. Kind of working in with some middle values. I'm using some of that amethyst here. I see that in the eye socket. I like to keep in mind what the color of my light source is, and because she is outdoors in warm sunlight, she's going to have a lot of warmth in her skin tones. And
Mm-hmm.
then the shadows, relative to that, are going to be fairly cool, but I don't mean, orange skin and blue shadows. That's the extreme of it, and it might be appropriate in some settings, but for this, it's going to be a lot more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be looking for something a tiny bit cooler in the shadows than what I'm seeing in the lights, but it's going to be barely barely cooler. So I'm adding a tiny bit of Viridian up here, and I'll stick that in below the chin, and you can see that. At least I hope you can see that. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more here.
You're going to get pretty crowded there.
I know. Hopefully
Hello,
that's
San
okay.
Miguel Diente. I was just down there last week.
I'll move this over so you guys can see it just a little bit better. Yeah, see, if you turn it this way, there's glare.
Yeah, we can see it. It looks great.
Great.
Oh, you're fast.
I'm very fast at the beginning, and that's kind of the point of this demonstration, is to show that you can be fast and intuitive instead of slow and deliberating. And what that does is it gives it a feeling of immediacy and life, whether or not you're working from a live model.
I'm getting
I
questions about your brush.
Sure, this is in Isabe Isocryl size 2. It's a flat, and it's kind of a synthetic, somewhere in between a bristle and a sable.
Okay.
So it's soft, but it's thick, or it's wiry enough that it can carry a lot of paint on it, but soft enough that I can still sort of blend with it.
And it looks like you've been using a couple different brushes.
Yeah, I actually haven't used these yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, the other one I used was the same kind of brush, but in a size 4. So that's what I used for my block in.
All right, cool.
I like to keep my brushes to a minimum because I find if there's one that's working for me, I'll just stick with that through the whole painting.
I often do the same thing. One brush, whole painting.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. It just saves time.
It saves time washing brushes. That's like my least favorite thing to do.
Yeah. I have other things that are even more least favorite, but they have nothing to do with painting.
Cleaning the shower. Yeah, we still have lives, right?
Yeah, that's right. It keeps us humble.
Yes.
It's God's way of reminding us that we're nothing special.
Yeah, but if I could just, eat, sleep, breathe painting all the time, I would be totally fine with that.
Well, you've got what, 2 kids?
I do. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old little boy. And I know you mentioned this earlier. Yes, they end up in my paintings all the time.
I have triplets.
Do you really?
So when you're having a really bad day and they're both throwing fits, just amplify that a little bit more.
I'll keep that in mind. I'm actually an identical twin.
Are you?
Yes, my twin sister Emily is also a painter, and she paints in watercolor, and she has her own YouTube channel where she does watercolors on there.
What's
But
her last
I'm
name?
sure her name's Olson, Emily Olson. You can look her up on YouTube, Emily Olson Art, and she's also an amazing painter. But we have very different styles, and it's kind of fun to just see how that has worked out over the years. So I can relate to being a multiple, but not being the parent of one or 3. Does this still count as a block-in? I mean, I feel like.
Well, it looks like you're just kind of I'm just letting you go because you're just doing such a great job.
funny thing is, I'm really, really enjoying all the color in this. And I had a hard time sort of picking out a reference photo for today because I've painted all my favorites, and then I stumbled across this one, and I was like, oh, you know what? This could work really well because she's got such beautiful color all over and great structure to her face. So
Beautiful model.
if you're a beginning portrait painter, I I do recommend working with more uh, contrasty lighting because that helps you see the forms a lot easier. It
Hmm.
probably wouldn't go as quick as this if she had flat lighting on her face and I couldn't see the shadow or the shape of the eye socket or the shadow under her nose. So that's another tip for those of you just getting into portraits. You know, work with things that are a little bit simpler and easier to see. So if you have a model set up under a light, you know, give them a little bit of a harsher light so that you can actually see everything that's going on there.
Good advice.
But the other thing to keep in mind, if you're working from photos, make sure that your lights aren't overly washed out. That tends to happen. And then the darks tend to lose color in a photograph.
Hmm. Well, you don't get any
Still,
shadow detail in most photographs.
yes, yes.
That's why
This
painting
one I
from
was
life is so
fortunate.
important.
I totally agree. I think once you've painted from life enough, you have sort of an idea of what to look for in a photo, and then you can change it accordingly so that it looks like it was done from life. Look at all that red in her neck.
Yeah. Well, she's been out in the sun, but only her neck.
Just her neck. Well, you know what this needs is it needs some context. So we'll start putting in some background, which we can do with putting some hair in. And
You know, you guys,
background.
if you watch this show every day, you're gonna it's gonna be like going to art school. I mean, the art school is great because you're getting feedback and you're getting a one-on-one help, but you can learn an awful lot. If you're new to this, just tune in. We're here every day and every 5 days a week, and then we did 7 days a week for close to a year in COVID, and then went to 5 days a week and have continued. And if you want to find all of the broadcasts we've ever done, they're all on YouTube. You can just go to YouTube and search Streamline Art, and you'll find it on YouTube. All right.
Wow, that's so great.
Hit
Yeah,
the
I didn't have that
subscribe
when I was
button.
in college.
Also, if you've just tuned in, we have a free gift for you today. It's called 10 Steps to Become a Better High-Level Figure and Portrait Artist. Just go to realismlive.com/ebook. All right. Well, this is fabulous. You are just knocking it out of the park.
Thank you.
I guess it's spring, so I can use baseball analogies now.
I like to use musical analogies when I paint. I've been a classical pianist since I was 8. And
Are you really?
so I find that art often sort of lacks the vocabulary that maybe something like music has. So I
You
borrow musical terminology all the time.
you might be an underachiever. I'm just saying. Classical pianist and brilliant painter.
I was homeschooled, if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't into sports.
Applause to your parents.
Yeah, they.
Are you homeschool? You got to homeschool your kids?
No. We have some great schools around here, and my daughter is such a spitfire. I don't think she would do well under my instruction. So, yeah. But maybe I can teach her how to paint. Teach her how to play piano.
My kids don't seem to have any interest in learning how to paint.
Well, maybe it'll come later.
My daughter, though, can come out. She'll come out to the studio and she'll say, "Dad, your drawing's off."
Yep.
She's always right. So what did you do there with that green around the cheek? Is that putting the cheek into shade? What are you doing there?
So I'm actually drawing the cheek with the background tone, if that makes sense. I'm chiseling in with this green to get the cheek the right size because it was kind of over painted in the sense that I had it out too far.
Yeah.
So I'm chiseling it in and making it the right size, putting it in the right place. And I'm doing that without actually painting the cheek itself.
Cool. Hello, Hazel in New Zealand. I'm bringing a group to New Zealand in September. If you guys want to go, just go to paintingnewzealand.com. We can only take 47 people, and we've already sold about 10 seats. So get busy and get that done.
Okay, so I'm kind of doing the same thing over here.
Okay.
I'm shaving in the forehead with the hair.
Wow, welcome. Cape Town, South Africa. Welcome.
Oh, how cool.
See, now the trick is, you guys, when you're watching from all these exotic places, exotic to us, probably home to you, when you hit the share button, all your buddies find out about it. That's how we grow this. We've had massive audiences. Here's another one, New Zealand. Massive audiences from around the world during COVID and since, because of you. Our guest today is Anna Rose Bain, if you're just tuning in. And she started out how to get a quick likeness blocking in a portrait, but she just decided to keep doing it. And
yeah, I mean, I didn't want the show to end in 5 minutes.
That's right, you're so fast.
Georgia, it was going to be fast.
Now, what we want each of you to do is to try this at home. You know, you need to try it, learn it, see if you can do it. You just got to practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, lots of practice.
Yeah.
Lots of drawing. Draw all the heads. I'm taking a soft brush, really, really soft brush. This is actually an old, I don't even know how old this brush is. It's one of those Lang nickel brushes. But it's so soft, and I'm barely touching the canvas just to knock down some of those paint ridges, some of the glare. I can use it to soften the hairline here and make it so that there's no hard edges whatsoever.
Nice.
We don't want her to have helmet head, right? So we're looking for very, very soft edges around the
helmet head.
Helmet head. It's a thing.
Yeah. Well, I think my paintings probably have a lot of helmet head, just saying.
And you know what happens is it's just you're isolating the hair from the face or from the rest of the portrait. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make it feel like it's all one, that every part of this painting is essential to the finished product. And so I try to marry my background with the forms and the subject, just to make sure that every square inch of it is interesting to look at and dynamic.
Why do you paint on aluminum?
Well, it's I prime it first. I prime it with oil primer, and I like to use 3 coats of oil primer.
So you're priming the aluminum surface. You're not, because some of them have a canvas mounted to aluminum. This is just straight aluminum. Yes.
This is just straight aluminum. I love the ones that are already pre-primed or like.
I love painting on copper.
I have not gotten used to copper as hard as I've tried. What do you like about it?
Well, there's one company that makes a copper where they have sandblasted it, so it gives it just little beady edges. I like it because it's a mid-tone, and I can leave some of that middle tone showing through.
Oh yeah, and then it kind of glows underneath, right?
It does. It glows. It's great if you're painting campfires.
I'll have to try that. Yeah,
well, there's a lot of, you go to the museums in Europe, there's a lot of paintings done in copper.
last forever.
Yeah. Now the problem is the copper is more valuable
That's
than the
good stuff.
painting.
Now, I haven't talked a whole lot yet about edges, but I'm thinking about edges as I go. Edges are tricky with portraits. I think often we make them all equal all over because we think, well, I'm seeing everything really sharp, because that's what I'm looking at in that moment. I see a sharp edge. But painting is going to be different than a photograph. Obviously, it's going to be different than what you're seeing in real life, in the sense that we get to decide what our focal point is, and we get to decide what goes off into space and what comes forward. So when I'm deciding about edges on a portrait, I'm usually looking for areas of high contrast, such as right here, where we've got a shadow-filled eye socket, and then we've got her nose lit up. So that's a really great opportunity for a sharp, like a razor sharp edge. And then we've got more subtle areas where we've got slightly turning planes, and those end up being middle values. So that's a great opportunity for soft edge. And then you can have lost edges like up here in the hair. So
Cool.
Lots of variety in a portrait, more than you might think at first.
Hey, Anna, I want to take a quick break and then have you come back on camera so we can finish up. Sound like a plan?
I'm not decided yet whether or not I like this, so I'm going to just take my soft brush and knock that down.
All right. Anna, I want to take a quick
really
break.
Not to over
Can you hear me?
Though, because it ends up destroying some of those lovely forms and brush strokes that I started with at the beginning.
Nice. Can you hear me?
I do get asked a lot, do you struggle with paint consistency if you're working all wet and wet?
Yeah.
And, does the paint just get dragged around? Well, that was something I dealt with a lot early on in my learning as a young artist. And to me, it just ended up being a matter of learning how to control the pressure of my brush. So that's really key when you're doing subtle forms like an eyelid, for example, which is kind of where I'm working right now. I'm barely touching the canvas. So I have slowed down a little bit.
Yes, you have.
I'm putting in some really intense color at the edge. Here, I'll zoom in for you real quick.
Ooh, zoom.
You guys see that?
Yes.
It's hard to tell on the camera, but I put in some really intense color along the edges of the shadows. It's almost like pure red. Another great place for that is right here at the opening of the mouth.
Now you're using those other brushes.
You just tell me when to stop, Eric. I could do this all day.
I don't think you can hear me, can you? Anna is not hearing me. Can you guys, if you're in the comments, can you hear me? Because
way more than a block in, huh?
Yeah. It's a finished portrait. Fabulous. I'm going to take her out for just a second because she's not hearing me, and we're going to have to end the show in a second. So I'm going to bring her back in, see if that makes a difference. Okay, Anna, can you hear me? Hello, 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 hello. All right, she is not hearing me. Anna. All right.
I cannot hear you anymore, Eric. Hang on.
All right.
Hang on. Let me check my.
Okay, what's going to happen is she's going to check her camera, phone, whatever, and we'll see if we can get her back so we can say goodbye to her because she can't hear me, but you guys can. All right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
All right.
I was like,
Okay, so
radio
what I'd
silence.
like you to
Is
do
that
is to
recording?
come on camera and put your paintbrush down, and yeah, there we go. Terrific.
All right.
Okay, because you did an incredible job, more than a block, and you over delivered. You gave everybody more than they possibly could have ever expected. And round of applause, everyone. Thumbs up, hearts,
Oh,
likes.
thank you.
That was really wonderful. Anna, we have put your website information in the comments section, and anything that you've got coming up you want to tell us about?
Sure. I'm on the faculty for Portrait Society this year. I'm also doing a demo with the Oil Painters of America in Steamboat Springs, and that's the weekend of Memorial Day through, I think, June 6th. And then I have a workshop coming up. I'm going to be teaching how to paint children, and that will be with the Rochester Art Club in October. So all that info is on my website under events.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And you just blew everybody away with your incredible ability. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'll be sure to post the finished painting to my Instagram if you guys are curious to see how it turns out.
All right. Excellent. All right. So our guest today, Anna Rose Bain, hang with me for just a second, if you will. Just want to mention a couple of things to you. First off, we have an incredible event coming up in person in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it's called the Plein Air Convention. And we have to gather fewer people this year, unfortunately, but we only have 97 seats left, and that may have changed since yesterday. But join us in New Mexico at the Plein Air Convention. We've got 60 faculty members. It's a huge event, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We also have an event coming up called Pastel Live. We have not filled out the full faculty yet, but we've got an incredible faculty, legends, and that's coming up in August. And we have Watercolor Live, which will be coming up in January. And we also have Realism Live coming up, which is going to be about portraits and about figures and a still life and a little bit of everything. And we've got some incredible people coming up for that, and that's in November. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in today. Thank you to Anna Rose Bain. What a rock star. I think you would agree. Make sure you share this and also leave a comment so you can win. Today we're giving away an easel brush clip, and so make sure you leave a comment. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks again to Anna Rose Bain. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines. Have a really terrific day. Keep your head in the game. Stay focused. You're going to be in good shape. This is going to be a great year. Things are really shaping up. All right. You guys take care. Bye-bye.